this video, I'll be sharing with you a requested tutorial on how to draft this stylish Basque Victorian corset. To start, I've marked out my basic measurement for this particular pattern. It includes my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waistline, and then I'm adding 5 inches for the basque because of the length of the basque. After marking that, I'll go ahead and I'll mark my shoulder divided by 2. My shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2, I'll mark 7 inches. So after that, I'll come down by 1 inch. From here, I'll mark a basic neckline of 3 inches and I'll go ahead to connect it all the way to the shoulder slope. Now, I'm going to find my chest line, which is my bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Mine gave me 7 inches and I made a mark and I will draw out a straight line there. Over here, I'm going to mark my shoulder divided by 2. Now, after that, I'll place my ruler and I'll connect this all the way up. After connecting, I'm going to place my tape and I will divide my armhole into 2. Come out by ½ inch, and on the chest line, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. From the midpoint of my armhole, I'll take it all the way up, and from the chest line, my bust circumference there, I'll connect it to the armhole. Next is to mark your dart. I'll go ahead to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5 inches. I'm going to mark this all the way, going down to the bust, under bust, waist and basque length, which I placed my ruler, and I'm going to connect a straight line all the way to the lower part. Next step is to mark my dart intake, which I'm going to mark 1 inch on both sides. This is because my bust is on the smaller size. If you're a bit busty or you're on the plus size, please, you're going to use 1.5 inches on both sides of this pattern. So for this pattern, I'm making use of a straight dart, which is easier to work with. I'm going to go ahead to draw a straight line going all the way down, and I'll connect this on the other side of this pattern also. Now, after I'm done connecting, I'm going to divide from my armhole to that point where I have my basic neckline into 2, and I'll fold my tape and I'll mark. From that point, I'm going to connect this all the way down to my bust line. And after connecting that, I'll place my ruler and I'll connect from my bust all the way to the under bust. So when you're connecting this, please don't make it too curvy, because looking at the pattern is a Victorian corset, but at the bust area, it does not have much depth. So I'm just going to go ahead and I will connect and go ahead to outline with my marker. The dart at the over bust, I'll go ahead to just use 1 inch on both sides of this pattern at the shoulder. So I'm using a shoulder dart for this pattern. So this is because I don't want to have much depth at the upper part of this pattern, because if you notice, the Victorian corset at the upper part of this corset is not cupped like a bustier. This type of Victorian corset snatches your waist, gives your bust a support or a lift at the upper part. Start connecting from that point, and while going down, I'll go ahead to use my free hand to connect this. Next, I'm going to decide where you want this pattern to start. So I'm using like 2 inches after my chest line. That is the part towards the bust area. So now I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and also add my sewing allowance. Before continuing, I will mark out that line. Here I will mark my under bust circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake I have here, replace and add my sewing allowance. So what you just need for the sewing allowance of this pattern is ½ inch. On the waistline, my waist is 28 and I want to snatch out 2 inches from it. If I take out 2 inches from it, what I'm going to have is 26 inches. So I'll divide that 26 and mark, then measure my dart intake, replace and add my sewing allowance of ½ inch. So there's no need adding your measurement here at the basque, because we are going to have a basque waistline there. Now connect from the bust to the under bust and to the waist. So after connecting, the next step is to mark your bust dart. And to get your bust dart is the difference between your shoulder to waist in front and your shoulder to waist at the back. My shoulder to waist in front is 17 inches, while my shoulder to waist at the back is 15.5. So if you take out 15.5 from 17, you're going to have 1.5 inches. So that is what I marked, and I connected it to the nipple point. So the next step is to go ahead to mark out the basque and the neckline of this dress, right? So from here, I'll come in by my sewing allowance of 1/2 inch and come in a little so that it will match up the waistline at the back. Then I'll now draw out the basque with my free hand this way. So after that, I'll just go ahead and use my marker to reconnect my pattern. So now we are done with the lower part. Let's move to the upper part of this pattern. So towards the side of this pattern is a bit longer. I added additional 2 inches there. So you can go ahead to add more or reduce it. So from there, I'll just create like this slightly asymmetric curve by the side, because that is what we have on the pattern. And from there, I'll come in a bit. So now I'll go in like towards that 2 inches that I marked earlier above my chest line, and then I'm going to go ahead to create like a curve. So if you're not okay with what I marked here, you can always readjust before going ahead to draft this on the pattern paper. That is for the neckline of the dress. You can go ahead to readjust it to it suits you. So I'll just go ahead and outline my pattern. I had to do that offline to reduce time. So after marking it out, I cut out the excess that I'm not using. Now I'll blend out the side dart and I will cut out. So after cutting this out, we are going to go ahead to draft out the back pattern of this dress. So when cutting out the side, blend out the dart and make sure you blend your under bust to your bust area, and then go ahead to cut out the rest of your pattern. Now another thing is that this pattern is a Victorian corset and there is multiple dart lines on it. And what you're going to do now is to go ahead to like add like a style line to create that multiple dart effect, since we have gone ahead to snatch our waistline directly. This method is easier. It prevents you from using that to like create multiple pattern for your Victorian corset. So this is what we have. I'm moving over to the back. So for the back, what I have here is my shoulder to waist at the back. So I marked my shoulder divided by 2, just like we did for the front pattern, and I found my chest line, which is my bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches. Marked out my bust. So what we will now do is to go ahead to mark my dart. To mark my dart, I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2, and I'm going to place my ruler to draw a straight line. Now after I'm done marking that, I'm going to mark 1/2 inch on both sides of this pattern to mark out my dart. Come down by 1 inch from the bust line. Now I'm going to connect that 1/2 inch all the way to the upper part of this pattern and repeat the same process at the other side. Now I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4 and add 1/2 inch. Now at the waist, I'm going to mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the dart intake, replace, and add 1/2 inch also for my sewing allowance. So the back pattern is very easy, you don't have to do much. Now I connected it all the way up this way. Now I'll go ahead to come down by 1/2 inch here, which I will connect back to the chest line. This is because you don't want the lacing area to pop up at the center or be too high towards the center area. Now for the lacing area, I'll be using 2 inches. So you can use 1.5 or any measurement of your choice, or you can even create a slanted effect. So this is what I have for the back, and for the back pattern, we'll be keeping it simple and easy to avoid going through the stress of joining so many patterns. So I also added a style line to this, which will help me cut my pattern into 3 different parts, right? And then I'll go ahead to cut out the sides and the part going towards the lacing. So now after cutting this, I'll slash it open. That is, you can go ahead to cut it out into 3 different patterns, or you can decide to blend up your dart and just have 2 patterns for the back.